Good morning, YouTube. It is 10 a.m. in the great state of Texas, and by that intro, you can tell we are doing a scrap bowl project. However, this isn't your normal scrap bowl project. I have all of this scrap wood. I need to get rid of it. Lumber prices are at an all-time high. Actually, by the time you're watching that, they should have gone down by now. But we've got to get rid of all this scrap wood because I'm moving out of the garage and I'm moving into a different shop location. And you typically will see me do these 5-quart buckets. For me, those are fairly large projects. However, get the hell out of here. We're doing a 10-quart wood project today. Epoxy, scrap wood, 10-quart. Way bigger than what my lathe is able to handle, at least in my opinion at the time. So we're going big because we got to get rid of the scrap wood. So have all of the scrap wood from all of the projects that I've done over the past 2.5 years. And I'm trying to move into my new house, and I've got to get rid of this stuff. So instead of throwing it away, we're piling it into this bowl, and we're going to see if we can turn the largest bowl that I've ever made on my lathe. I have a MIDI lathe. It's a Nova 2 Comet, and I've never made anything this big. I've made some pretty big bowls, and every time I think I've pushed the edge, this one will definitely test my patience. So we've got everything nice, neat, stacked up, have a faceplate on it. Using East Coast resin for this project, 64 ounces of hardener, or 64 ounces of hardener with the actual epoxy. Mix it all together, 128 ounces. We're using Black Diamond Purple Haze pigment. I've never used this brand. Let me tell you, this is absolutely good stuff. So got everything mixed up, giant bucket of epoxy, and got everything taped in there. And I'm pretty worried because we're using a lot of epoxy on this project. So initially I'm thinking, please God, let this work. So 4.5 hours in the pressure pot, two-handed this son of a bitch, and this is the bowl blank afterwards. And I'm going, okay, it looks cool. It looks all right. However, you can already tell there are giant cracks at the top of the bowl. Like you can see all of them. They're so evident that they're there. So this obviously has me concerned, but I'm thinking, okay, I've dealt with cracks in the past. This is the largest project I've ever done. We can get this done. We can figure it out. So usually I'll just use, shorter screws to put the faceplate on. I'm using deck screws on this project because it's so massive. So don't want anything flying off the lathe, especially something this large. So ended up burning out my Ryobi drill. I had to go ahead and take the impact driver and get that all squared up. So there we are with that, getting everything screwed in, thinking, okay, this is a bad mamma jamma. Get this thing on the lathe. You can see how large this thing is. It's just freaking massive. So once we got that on, now I was smart enough to realize we got to bolt it down. So I took some scrap wood, some scrap pine, and basically braced, and I needed to do this a long time ago. This is long overdue. But we're ready to go. And I'm about to make a prediction of what I think is going to happen.
Okay, so everything is hooked up. I'm going to make a prediction. I have not yet turned this on. This is not going to be sustainable. It's probably not going to even turn well enough for me to even start gouging or turning it. If it does, I'm going to have horrible chipping. This is a monster on this lathe. Totally not conducive with wood turning. So that's my prediction. 1, it's not going to turn. 2, if it does, I'm not going to get very far because it's going to explode. So wish me luck. Here we go. Haven't turned it on. Let's get this.
All right, so here we go. Turning it on. First time. Wow. Nobody was more shocked than me that this thing actually turned. So we started the process of getting that superficial layer off like we do with all of our projects. Realized I'm going to have a lot of chipping, a lot of shards hitting me, and I got already hit with a couple of pieces of shrapnel in this video. So that's why I went and got my welding jacket. It's a heavy-duty leather jacket to prevent these large shards of epoxy that were shooting off and hitting me in the chest and the arms, which was totally affecting my wood turning. So this was like in June that I did this project, June of 2021. And I was absolutely, it was already like 110 degrees in the garage. And then you add this jacket, it's like another 100. I'm basically baking in this jacket trying to get this wood turning done. So I was amazed. Look at that awesome shoddy camera work, always great. So I was amazed that this thing even turned. It's 10 quarts of epoxy and wood, absolutely heavy, massive project, but it turned. So I was getting, I expected there to be some problems with that, the layered epoxy, because the epoxy is not meant for deep casting. It's only meant to be a couple of inches, and this thing is like almost a foot worth of epoxy. That's why I had so many issues with just chunks of this thing coming off. But once we got that superficial layer off, I really didn't have any really big problems with that. It was just peeling back the layers, layer by layer, getting everything slowly turned down, making everything nice and cylindrical to where we could, manage it. And that was the whole point of this, was just trying to manage the massiveness of this thing. So for some dumb reason, I came back and hit it with a flat skew, and I was like, no, we still have more layers to get off of this bad boy. So, for the next couple of, passes, we're just getting slowly, methodically. Usually I'll do this in sections, like do the bottom and then work my way up to the headstock. Typically we'll try to get that done first, because the bottom is the most important, at least in this process to me, because at the bottom or near the tailstock is where I'm going to form the mortise. So getting that superficial layer off, absolutely important. Came back, hit it with the chisel and the round carbide tool, so I flipped back and forth. Sorry, I lost the footage of me making the mortise, but it went overall really well. And here I am just working out the bottom of it once I've gotten most of the top layer of the epoxy done, and now we're just coming back and refining it, doing some finer detail work. Not worried about perfection at this point. When I was doing this project, I was just happy that it worked and that it was turning and that we were getting something out of it. So I wasn't too particular about the finer points like I usually do with a lot of my other bowls. But here it is, once we got it flipped and turned onto the headstock with a chuck in it. And you can see the cracks, and I'm going over. There are some parts of it that don't have any epoxy in it, and that was from the casting. And then there's some parts where you can see these big cracks, and you get a better idea of how deep the cracks actually are. Which in my head I'm thinking, I'm going to start turning this and I'm going to get larger pieces of epoxy, just shrapnel flying in my face. So I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I got my jacket on. I got my face shield on. I'm ready to rock and roll. So here we are trying to manage the lip of the bowl, which overall went okay. But I had a lot of high anxiety once I got to that portion of it, only because I was so prepared for that top layer of epoxy just to come off in a large chunk and just hit me in the face. And you can see there I had a little bit of chip out. Actually, it was a lot of chip out, but not nearly as bad as I expected it to be. So now we're just slowly trying to grind off that top lip portion of it so we can start the actual gouging portion of it. And again, I came back, hit it with the round and the chisel carbide tool, had a little bit of chip out, had to come back and just fix a little bit of those problems. And there you can see me just, not a death grip on the chisel, but, I'm very aware that, I'm getting hit with all of this epoxy shards. And if you've ever been hit with epoxy shards, it is scary because it just feels like it's like being in a hailstorm and you can't protect yourself. So that's kind of what it feels like. So at this point, I'm kind of debating how I want to tackle it again. So once I realized that, we're not going to be able to refinely, get those pieces turned down, all I did was come back and decided to start just, take that whole top layer of epoxy where the tailstock is off. So we're just trying to, work that round lip and get it all the way worked down to the waist block so we can start the actual gouging process. Just trying to be as delicate and save as much of the bowl as I possibly can. It's already large, so I didn't have to worry too much about losing a lot of epoxy, but I knew that superficial layer that was on top of the bowl definitely had to go. So here we are hitting it with the waist block. Now we're just taking the square carbide tool and slowly managing our way down, really taking our time, being methodical about it, not attacking the epoxy like I'll typically do. And once I started to get the waist block down, I realized that, we're getting a lot more better layers off, and you can see there we're getting a lot more ribbons versus that of just that shards of glass coming off of it. So here we are a little bit later, came back, hit it with a hand saw, get that top portion off of it before we actually started the gouging process, which we're going to start here in just a little bit. So once we got to this point, my biggest fear was that it was just going to fly off the lathe because it's so large. And typically, if you've watched my channel for any amount of time, like I typically will tell you, if I usually get things that fly off the lathe, and the size of this thing, I was really concerned that it was going to fly off the lathe, but spoiler alert, it didn't. So I, alternated between 2 different round carbide tools, one smaller, one larger, depending on the depth of the bowl and what I was trying to do, and then the actual bowl gouge itself. So using all 3 of those tools plus the square carbide tool, really took my time working this off. Wasn't attacking it during the gouging process like you've seen me do in some other projects. Sometimes I'll just get super frustrated and just start attacking, which is never a good thing. Just really slowly, methodically took my time, and I felt more comfortable once we started to get deeper into the bowl gouge. I felt a lot more comfortable turning, which really helped a lot of the technique portion of it, because the middle of it is wood, but you can feel it on the chisels when you hit a pocket of wood versus a pocket of epoxy, and that sometimes will take away from the gouging process and kind of, at least for me, make some hesitancy because it just reacts so different. So you just have to react to the material that you're working with, pulling back versus, not attacking, but being a little bit more aggressive with the gouge when you're working that. So here we are a little bit more in depth in the bowl, and again, we're just switching between all of those 4 tools, trying to get everything, nice down to the bottom. And, realistically, I probably could have gone a little bit deeper into the bowl itself, but the problem is getting to the depth, because once you start getting further away from the impact portion of the bottom of the bowl with the chisel, it gets away from you a little bit, and my banjo isn't in a good position to where I can get it in there and really just get more finer detail work the deeper that you get in there. So that's why it's not as deep, but it's a pretty good depth. I mean, this thing is literally a bucket, and here I am. You can see me. I'm sweating my balls off with that hot leather jacket and my face shield. And that face shield has taken so many hits to the face that, it's kind of, I need to get a new visor for sure, because that thing has got a lot of scratches in it. Always wear your face shield, people. I'm already ugly. I can't risk the biscuit, getting hit with a piece of epoxy to the face. But anyway, here we are, nearly done with it, doing a lot of edge work up until this point, really getting everything nice, neat, and to the edge as much as possible. The edges of the bowl are a lot thicker than I typically will do, but there are so many cracks. I worried about, a piece of the side of the bowl just flying off. So took a lot of considerations of what the bowl was and how the epoxy set up, so was really mindful of that. So here we are at the end, once all the gouging portion is done. I did do 1 or 2 cleanups during this initial process of gouging, so this isn't all of the actual wood shavings. This is actually just a small portion of it, because like I said, a very large project, so had to go back and clean everything up a couple of times just because it was getting in the way. But you can see just how massive this thing is. And for those cracks that you saw, all I did was took wood filler, mixed it with some of that purple haze dye or powder or whatever it was, mixed it together and made a paste out of it, and just used the wood filler to get into the cracks. Just wanted to have a little bit more continuity of the bowl. I think this is a good accent piece for it. It looks pretty good. So you didn't see me do that. So then we did a lot of sanding. Went 220 all the way up to 1500 on this one. Didn't do any, at least I don't remember doing any wet sanding on this one. I might have. No, I didn't on this one because it's mostly wood, so I didn't feel like I was going to get a lot out of the micro mesh out of this one. But came back, hit it with that wood wax like we typically like to do. Like I said, I did this in June of 2021. Not sure when I'm going to release this video, but this is definitely the largest bowl that I have done to date. This is the biggest project I've done. I'm surprised it worked. This lathe performed fabulously. Sorry about the lens work. There's a lot of dust in the lens. I need to go back and clean it up, but it looks gorgeous. The purple with the way the sun hits through it, some portions of the wood and the epoxy. Absolutely love the way this turned out. Absolutely gorgeous. So I hope you guys got something out of the project. It's a monster of a project, but we got it done. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next project. Comment, share, all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next project. All right, I gotta go. Peace. Okay, so the project is done. And wow, the bucket. That's what I'm going to call this, the purple bucket. It has got a slew of imperfections
You can see all the cracks. I had to go back and put wood filler in this thing. But this is literally the largest bowl I have ever made. It's huge. This is a bucket. This is a 10-quart blank that I made. Absolutely stunning the way this thing turned out. This purple looks gorgeous. I didn't think I was going to have anything. I really thought at best I was going to have to cut the blank in half and do 2 separate bowls. But man, this is absolutely gorgeous. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Bit of a longer video, but wow, look at that. It just, I had to get rid of all this scrap. I'm sure I went over in the commentary. You know, I'm moving, got to get rid of all this. Lumber is like $1 billion a board. So there it is. The purple giant. Beautiful. So hope you liked it. Not perfect, but wow, we got something out of it. So hope you enjoyed the project. Don't forget to subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 before the end of the year, which you guys are probably watching this in December. Actually, I'm not sure when I'm going to release this. Today is actually June 17th. Wait, let me check real fast. Yeah, June 17th, 2021. So you guys are probably watching this in the fall, but really happy the way this turned out. I'm glad I could have produced something like this, even though it's imperfection. It has a lot of imperfection. So anyway, I hope you liked it. I'm blabbing now. I'll catch you guys in the next project. We're going to do bigger ones. All right, peace.